And this week's parsha is Parshas Vayeishev. We all know the story. Yosef comes out into the field. His brothers see him coming from afar. Yehuda, the pasuk tells us, doesn't tell us it's Yehuda, but the pasuk tells us Yehuda says, this dreamer boy's coming. Let's go kill him. He's got nothing good to say about us. Off with his head. Reuben says, no, don't kill him. Let's throw him in a pit. And then we'll figure out what to do after that. So lo and behold, they throw him in the pit, as the story goes. And they go and break bread. They say, oh, okay, Yosef's taken care of. Let's go have lunch. The pasuk tells us, Vayeshvu lechol lechem, vayesu eineihem. They sat down to have lunch. They're eating bread. And then they lift their eyes and they see that in the distance, they see Arab merchants coming. And they realize, it's the desert. There's plenty of space you can see for miles. So they noticed, let's say right now it's 12 o'clock. 6 o'clock, they'll probably be here. We'll sell Yosef to the Arabs. They'll bring him to Egypt. Perfect. Till Dad got killed by an animal. So what does the pasuk tell us? So they're sitting down, they're having bread. You can picture it, right? The nice buffet, the brothers, all the shvatim having lunch together out in their field. I'm sure it was beautiful. The pasuk says, "Vayavra anoshim midyanim socharim," and there were Midyani merchants that came through. Vayimshechu, and they pulled him out. Vayalu es Yosef min habor, and they lifted Yosef out of the bore. And then what? The pasuk says, "Vayimkor es Yosef laishmelim." Whoa, whoa! And they sold Yosef to the Arabs. Hold on a second. Growing up, I was always under the impression, year after year, hearing this parsha, who sold Yosef? Who? Exactly right, it was his brothers. The brothers sold Yosef. But that's not what the pasuk says. Whoa. And then, the pasuk continues and tells us how much money they sold him for to the Yishmaelim. And Yishmaelim brought him to Mitzrayim. Now, hold on a second. I would not feel comfortable saying that, yeah, this is what the pasuk means if it wasn't also for the Rashbam, who also implies and also says that it wasn't Yosef's brothers who sold Yosef. It was the Minyanim, which is totally different than how I always thought it was. Yeah, I know, it's pretty different. I know. So it says in Rashbam, the Rashbam says, he says, as they were sitting there, it seemed like the Midianite merchants came from out of the blue, from some other direction. They didn't know their Midianites were coming first. And it sounds like that they're the ones who sold him to Ishmaelim. Now the brothers had a hand in it because they threw him in the pit. Maybe they didn't stop them from taking him out of the pit and throwing him to the, selling him to the Ishmaelim. So they had a hand in the process. But hold on a second. Let's zoom out for a second and think about this. The brothers saw Yosef coming. When they decided he was a threat and they thought they were either going to kill him or sell him, or throw him in the pit, plan A, to kill him. That was Yehuda's plan. Plan B, throw him in the pit. That was Reuben's plan. Plan C, take him out of the pit, sell him to Arab merchants. So what happened between plan B and plan C? What happened between Reuben's plan of selling him to Arab merchants and having him in the pit to him actually being sold? What happened was time. Time happened. Time had passed, and in that lapse of time between 12 and 6, or whatever it was, these other people, the Midyani merchants, came by. They took Yosef out, they sold him, and Jewish history was set. Because in that lapse of time between plan B and plan C, the brothers could have easily taken him out. Like any good Jewish brother, they could have, given him a hard time, right? Jewish brothers are excellent at that. Just ask any parent they'll let you know that Jewish brothers know how to make each other miserable. They could have figured out how to make Yosef miserable, but they didn't do that. They could have pulled him out. We spend all of Pesach night, the Leil HaSeder. What do we talk about? How the Jews got out of Egypt. But then the smart kid at the table asked the question, right? How did they get in? We spent the whole night talking about how they got out of Egypt. How did they get into Egypt to begin with? Because brothers couldn't get along. Because brothers sold their brother out. But here, now we're hearing that they didn't. So what's the lesson in this totally new way of understanding the story of the selling of Yosef? Going back to the theme, what happened between plan B and plan C? Between brothers throwing him in the pit and planning, Reuben was thinking, I'm going to come back. I'll take care of it later. How many of us have said that before in our lives? Right? Don't worry, I'll do step one. Step two, I'm gonna do some stuff. I gotta go out, I'm gonna have lunch, and I'll be back in the evening to finish it off. Hoping that maybe the brother's angers would abate, and therefore he'd be able to save his brother. Which didn't happen. He had pushed it off too long. And in the course of waiting, in the course of procrastinating, what happened? Jewish history was set. Yosef was on the way to Mitzrayim. The Jews were going to be slaves in Mitzrayim and living in the desert, etc., etc., etc. In that small span of just moments, what happened was time. And I want to ask each one of you tonight, where is it in your life where you procrastinate, where you have unfinished business, and you say, I'll get to it. Yeah, well, I'll figure it out. Let's go eat. Let's go break bread. Yeah, I see a few heads nodding. I can relate. Right? Because we don't think of time as like, wow, what I do can have a ripple effect that can change Jewish history. It's incredible. The lesson of time is so powerful that it was just a few moments that made all the difference. Think about what the brothers were thinking. Maybe the ones who didn't want him killed, but they're going, did we just miss it? Rashbam tells us the brothers sounded like they were just a little bit of a distance away. And they kind of like almost, it's not clear, but it sounds like they almost saw this happening. Like the Midianite, Sochar Midianim, the Midianite merchants, they're pulling Yosef out, taking him and selling. Like they're watching this whole thing before their eyes, like what's being done to their brother. Wow. The message and the power of time. In just a moment, how much you could change history. Imagine what you can do if you finished your unfinished business. Maybe you're not going to change Jewish history for millennia to come, or for hundreds of years. But maybe there is an impact. Maybe there's a massive domino effect of the little things that you think that you might do and say, I'll get to it one day. How many of us, Rosh Hashanah to Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur to Yom Kippur, we're coming back and we're saying, yeah, I'll get to it. But we still have the same unfinished business as the year before. Just something to, I'll leave that thought with you. A second thought is, if you look at this entire rest of Sefer Bereshis, from the beginning of Parashas Vayeishev to the end of Vayechi, there's 14 parakim. 13 of those parakim, 13 of those 14 are about the whole story of Yosef. What happens to him, the things that happen in Mitzrayim when he becomes viceroy, second to power, all the stories just unwrapped. More than what we have on any of the other Shvatim, and quite a bit detail about someone who doesn't seem to be, on the surface, as significant as someone like Avram, Yitzchak, or Yaakov. 13 out of the 14 parakim. That's a lot of focus. So what is one of the things that happens in this week's parsha? That kind of builds a theme here. We know that Yosef goes down to Mitzrayim, he's thrown in a dungeon after Ashes Potiphar, and also at first when he was first landing in Mitzrayim. But after Ashes Potiphar, if we fast forward, the pasuk tells us that Yosef he had a chalom. And I'm sorry, the Sarah Mashkin and Sarah Tabachim, they each had a chalom. He interprets the chalom and he says, Ki im zechartani itcha, if you remember me, vizkartani al paro, and then mention me to Paro. And the Mefarshim say that he asked twice for that favor to be mentioned. Some of the Mefarshim say, so hold on a second. He asked twice, and because he asked twice, he got 2 years of punishment, where his sentence in jail was extended by 2 years longer. Now that's pretty rough. That's very rough. But some of the Farshim say, okay, so hold on. What if he only asked once? What would it have been if he only asked one time? So some of the Farshim say, if he only asked once, there would be no penalty. Whoa, hold on a second. It wouldn't be half the time? No penalty. Now, some of Farshim say 2 years still, some or 1 year, some say none. So there is a diverse, but what I'm focused on is the opinion of, if you want to tell me he asked twice, he gets 2 years. Then if you ask once, then he should get 1 year, right? Why is it if he asks once, he gets no years? But if he asked twice, he got 2. Why does it seem to be all or nothing? And the answer is that we need to ask. The lesson is, asking once, that's normal hishtadlos. That's normal exerting of your own efforts to try to have something come about in your life. We all need to know the lesson of ask once. When you ask a second and a third and a fourth and a fifth, or you ask this person and then you ask that rabbi and then you ask these other people, that might be an excess amount of hishtadlos. I'm not saying it is. Each situation is different and unique. I understand that. But asking once is a must. Because how can we ask God for something in our life if we don't ask Him or ask the person? If you think about it, everything in your life today, every major thing in your life today had come about through you asking at least once. Raise your hand if you're married. Okay, so for all of you that are married, especially the men, could you have gotten married if you didn't ask, will you marry me? How about a job? If you have a job, you had to ask something at some point to land you in the job you have today. Your friends, you had to ask questions. You had to ask for an opportunity to connect with them, etc., etc. You have to ask once. So many times in our life we hold ourselves back, either because we ask too many times or because we don't ask at all. And then we extend our own sentence a year, 2 years, etc., or longer. Have to ask. Final third point I want to share with you on the parsha is, if you look at the span of the things going on with Yosef, of the trials and challenges that he goes through, it's very easy to try to see things from his perspective and go, oh my gosh, look at all the things that are happening to him. From his brothers don't get along, and he's a dreamer, and he gets all these dreams from God. It's like, I didn't ask for the dreams. The dreams just came to me, and I'm just sharing them with you. Right? But that God, look what God did to me. Look what God did to me. He put me in a situation where I'm now given this kesonas pas and a special coat, showing favoritism for my dad. And then one thing after the next throughout the entire story of Yosef. Look at me, I got framed by Potiphar's wife. I was just trying to be a good guy. I was really tempted. Hey, listen, I'm a normal guy. One thing after the next is so easy to fall into the mentality of, it happened to me. But what I want to point out is, if you think about it, I feel that every one of us in our own lives can relate to the story of Yosef, in that we all have times in our life where some undesirable circumstance, some challenge that we never ask for, that is not at all convenient to our plan of how we want things to be. And it happens that way, and we feel in that moment that it is happening to us. But I believe that life doesn't happen to us. Life happens for us. And if you look over the next number of weeks, starting from this week's parsha and even last week's parsha, on through the end of the stories of Yosef, and on to stories of Moshe, the Jewish people. If you look at it from the perspective of these things are happening to Yosef, these things in my life happen to me versus for me, you create two totally different experiences of life. And that is extremely powerful. Because when life happens to me, I'm a victim. I'm powerless. It just happened to me. As if it's totally coincidence. I'm just never asked for it. But if life is happening for me, if it's happening on my behalf, wow. That means that all these things that I never asked for in my own life, that means all the things that are happening to Yosef, they're not happening to him. They're not happening to you. They're happening for you. And then we can start to ask ourselves the question of, how is this happening for me? How is this a favor? How is God thinking about me in a positive way, that he's giving me what I thought was a challenge? No, this is really for me. This is really an opportunity. This is going to build me, not break me. So I want to leave you with these three thoughts. Time. Where you have unfinished business, procrastinating to think about that just in a few moments, just a few moments, Jewish history was changed when Yosef was sold, but not even by his brothers. His brothers could have intervened and said, you know what, we're not going to sell him. Or you know what, hey, Mijani merchants, we're not going to let you sell him. We're going to take, that's our brother. Hey, get off of our brother. Just a few moments changed Jewish history. The only thing that happened was time, and being passive, and watching time play out and not being active and saying, Carpe diem. I'm going to seize this opportunity. I'm going to grab this moment. That's lesson one. Lesson two, you have to ask. The key to success, or one of them, we often hear lots of people talk about it, you have to ask. Every success that you have in your life, you're living proof of this. You had to ask. Every major relationship, every major thing in your life today, you had to ask, but ask once. It's okay to ask again. There are other situations, but you have to ask once, because if you ask so many times, it shows that you're not really believing in asking him. You're believing in other people. Al tivtechu b'nedivim, it says in Tehillim. Psalms 146. Don't trust in others. They don't have their own strength to bring salvation. It's really God who does. Lesson number three. See life. Choose to have the perspective in life that life is happening for me, not life is happening to me. And with that, I wish you a great evening. Thank you for coming. Thank you for listening. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to seeing you next week.